Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 345. We've got a great guest with us. We've got Belinda Weaver. And Belinda is an Australian copywriter currently living in California. Belinda left her corporate world to become a freelance copywriter in 2010. And after many years as an in-demand copywriter, she switched to teaching others what she knows. So that's a little intro. We're going to be discussing all things copywriting around membership sites and copywriting in general. Belinda, thanks for joining the show. Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Thanks for having me on, Jonathan. My name is Belinda Weaver. I'm an Australian copywriter. I'm living in California, so I'm slowly becoming a little Americanized, changing the way I'm talking, slowly but surely. So I became a freelance copywriter in 2010. I didn't actually know that copywriting was a thing that I could do as a full-time job, and as soon as I found out, within 6 months, I ditched my corporate day job. And was my own boss, and I can't imagine doing anything else now. So I've been a freelance copywriter since then, and just recently I guess not that recently now, 2013, I did a big pivot to my business where I started offering courses and coaching, and I just recently launched a membership site. So my business is evolving all the time. I still sometimes work one-to-one with clients, but everything is about copywriting, the craft of copywriting, the science of copywriting. I really dig it. That's what I'm all about.
That's great. And I got my great co-host, Cindy Nicholson. Like to introduce yourself, Cindy?
Sure, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. It is Cindy Nicholson. I'm from thecoursewhisperer.co, where I help entrepreneurs that are wanting to put an online course together. I help them put it all together.
That's great. And I'm the founder of WP-Tonic. We help membership owners, entrepreneurs that are looking to build a membership site or a learning management system. We also help a lot of companies in the non-profit sector manage and support their WordPress website, their membership or their learning membership portal. And before we go into the main part of the interview, I'd like to just quickly mention one of our great sponsors, and that's WP Fusion. And what is WP Fusion? Well, in your technology stack, obviously you should be using WordPress for your membership site, but your second stack is your CRM, your customer relation manager, like ActiveCampaign, Drip. There's a host of them. Even MailChimp is joining automotive marketing as well. So if you're using one of those, you really, and you've got a membership site or e-commerce site, what WP-Tonic does is it enables you to quickly and easily communicate with your CRM. It kind of puts it on steroids. And I would suggest you go to the WP Fusion website and look at their videos and what you can do around, using their product with a CRM. You probably don't even need a membership plugin. You can do membership levels by tagging. There's just a host of stuff to do. And what they have offered is a unique discount for WP-Tonic listeners and viewers. If you use the coupon code WP-Tonic or uppercase, you get 25% off any of their packages, and that is only offered to you, my listeners and viewers. So that's great news. On to the interview, folks. So, Belinda, copywriting's really important. I've learned that, and I suffer from a little bit of dyslexia, so I'm the worst of it. But I invest in quality copywriting. If I'm writing myself, I have it checked over by a professional copywriter. But so I've bought into how important it is, but what do you see in general? A lot of people, what are the general mistakes people make when they're thinking about copywriting?
Well, I think firstly, everyone can write their own copy. So it's one of those activities that when you run a business, you need to work out what it is that you should be spending your time on, and that it's going to be most profitable for you. So everyone can write their own copy. We write our own social media updates, where we're all in the publishing model, and we've all got should have a publishing mindset. But If it takes you too long and if it is just too hard, it is a great thing to give to a specialist because they can do it faster and probably a little bit better. That said, I don't think people should fear writing copy. Some of the challenges I think people have is this mindset shift that happens when we start to write. We can easily talk to our ideal clients. We can easily talk to our friends. We have great passion and a great conversational tone when we're explaining what we do and how we can help to the people who need to know. And then we try and put it on paper, whether it's virtual paper or actual paper, and suddenly we're writing a high school English essay again, and our brain kind of freezes up. So I think people are intimidated by the blank page and the cursor. So what that translates to is a very stiff tone of voice. We sound very, excuse the jingle jangles, my dog's in here. It sounds formal and unapproachable and unclear. So some of the challenges people have is getting clear and simple ideas across in a way that sounds natural and conversational. One of the tips that I give people who want to write their own copy but are really struggling to do it is record themselves talking. Imagine there is a person sitting across from them at the table and record themselves telling them about what they do and how they can help and why it's important and things like that. Because as soon as we start talking about what we do to our, even a pretend ideal client, we relax, we become more natural, and our passion starts coming through. And we use different words that will resonate more strongly with our audience. So that is one of the big challenges people face. Another mistake I make is what we do when we write about ourselves is we start with what we know, and that's ourselves. So a lot of copy we see online and offline is people just talking about themselves. And I totally get it, because you think, well, I need to tell my customers about me, and they need to understand what I do, so I need to talk about myself. But the whole shift that a copywriter can bring to a project, and the shift that people who write their own copy need to make, is that it's not actually about you. It's about what your clients and your customers will gain from working with you. So they're two of the big ones.
I think they're great points. And before I throw it over to Cindy, I just want to remark, I even think that applies to the About Us page. Obviously, the About, if you're a consultant, if you're a teacher, if you've got a membership site, your About Us page probably is about you, but it shouldn't be. It should be about what you know that will help your target audience, shouldn't it, Belinda?
Yeah, absolutely. And how they will benefit. So one of the tips I give students in my copywriting course, and I share as much as possible, is what I call the so what technique. So you explain a feature. You imagine that there's a stony-faced customer sitting across from you, and you say, oh, this is what I do. And they say, so what? You say, well, that's important because, and then you explain a little more, and they say, so what? So you explain a little more, and each time you answer that question, you hit upon something more meaningful than the answer before. So you need to be able to run through that sequence until you get to a benefit to the client that is actually meaningful to them.
Funny enough, my last date did that to me. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist it. I'm sorry, listeners and viewers. That was a bit of totally inappropriate English humour. Off to give it to Cindy. Thank you, Cindy.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. I totally agree, and I find copy often ties in nicely to like creating membership sites and online courses, because it really needs to be about the students, or it needs to be about the reader who, when you're either creating content or whether or not you're creating copy. So, maybe I'm just curious because, again, we talk a lot about online courses and membership sites. And one of the biggest, maybe biggest is an exaggeration, but the clients that I work with, they often struggle with naming things.
Yes.
So what's the name of the course going to be? And it holds them up. They struggle with that much more than some other things. So what would your advice be to somebody who's, creating a course or membership or what have you? And what kind of strategies can you give them to come up with how to name their course?
Well, firstly, I invite people to cut themselves some slack, because naming products and companies and courses is hard. It's really hard, because it's not just like, oh, that sounds good, but does it look good? Is the URL available? Is the name already taken? There's so many kind of almost technical aspects to the name. But one thing I recommend people consider when they are naming something is, what is the aspiration of the audience? Where do they want to end up? Not like, if we focus on a problem that is happening now, that will get someone's attention. But what we really want to do is we want to project where they're going to end up, where the transformation will take them. And I also think that names should be clear. Some people name products and they think, oh, it's really smart, and it's really clever, and it's a bit mysterious. Don't be mysterious. I think it's a plain, straightforward name that pretty much explains what it is and gives someone an aspirational endpoint. They're the two things I like to tick off when naming my own things.
Yeah, no, that is so true. And I agree 100%, really focus on what's the outcome, what's the results that they're going to get from taking the course, and then being super clear. Even so, some of my clients, they have the name of their course and then they have the modules within it, and then they want to try and get creative even with the names of the modules. I tell them to kind of back off and be super, super clear, because this is almost part of your marketing. Because when checking out your course, they're going to look at what the modules are and they want to see the results that they're going to get from those modules. So your advice around, be super clear, don't try to get creative or crafty is a really good one around that. For sure.
Yeah. So when I was naming I have a private coaching program for copywriters and business writers, and I had to come up with a name for that. What I settled on was confident copywriting, because that is how I want people to feel when they're working through the coaching program. So that's an example of that kind of aspirational, transformative idea in the name.
Yep. No, it makes sense. Jonathan?
Yeah, so can you give us some tips and insights about copy for sales pages, i.e. landing pages? Because I know a lot of people struggle with that, Belinda.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the reason that sales pages can be a little intimidating is, more often than not, they're so freaking long. You look at these, super successful people, and I subscribe to a lot of things because I want to see when things go live. I want to see what their sales pages have. I want to see what their email sequences contain. And I'll take a screen grab of the sales page, and it'd be like 6, the little Chrome add-on will say, I need to take 6 images because it's 10,000 or 15,000 words. And when you sit down and write your own sales page, that's a really intimidating place to start. But the good news is that sales pages can be constructed. And I think that makes them less intimidating. So for example, one of the copywriting formulas I use as a go-to for sales pages is called the PAS formula. Pain, agitate, solve, and then I like to add an outcome. So it's PASO, but it doesn't sound very good. So pain, agitate, solve, outcome. So you open with a challenge. You want to have one big challenge that your audience is facing right now. Then you can move on to agitating that challenge. You want to be as specific as possible, because the more specific you are in pulling out the details of the challenges and their life right now and what's stopping them from making progress, the more specific you are, the more it will resonate. Then you move on to the solution, and that's when you can present your awesome thing, your course, your membership, your product, anything like that. And then you talk about the outcomes of that, and then all the way through. So you've got 4 big categories, sections of your sales page. Then your blank page is busted, because even if you haven't got it perfected, you've got 4 big chunks of copy. Then through each one, you sprinkle some testimonials. So when you have your pain and your agitation, you need some testimonials that start talking about, I started here. I never thought I could do this. Reviews and experiences that tap into the pain that people are feeling. Then through your description of the solution, you want testimonials and reviews that lead people to the outcome. And then, of course, you want in there calls to action. So every time someone has to scroll on a sales page, you should have a call to action. So for each section, there's a call to action. For each section, there's a testimonial. And then all of a sudden, you've got chunks of your sales page and it's all done. And then you can work on finessing it. So starting a sales page can be tough, but I think if you look at it, and this is one of the reasons I love copywriting, because it really is a process of construction. You've got to understand your audience, and you've got to understand what you're selling. You've got to understand the transformation that they will undergo. But when you know those things, putting them on the page really is just a matter of construction.
That's great stuff. Thank you for that. I think we're going to go for our break, folks, and when we come back, we're going to be delving deeper into this murky world of copywriting and getting results. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. Belinda's been doing a good job of educating us on this world of copywriting. So, Cindy, got a question?
I do. So you are a copywriter, but you're also a course creator.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, a number of our listeners either have a membership site or are wanting to create online courses. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about, your experience, like, why you decided to create a course and what that kind of process looked like for you.
No worries. So I decided to create a course in 2013 because I moved from Australia to the US. I had a brand new baby, and managing time zones and client deadlines and a newborn baby was a little bit much. So I was working with a business coach and mentor, and she said, well, you're actually running training courses for other organizations. Why don't you have your own course? Wow, what a good idea. So I put the sales page up. I created an opt-in page. People started saying that they were interested. So that's a good thing to do before you even start creating the content. Make sure people are going to buy it. I launched, and I've been doing it 2 to 3 times every year since 2013. What, of course, I have done is I've switched client deadlines for course launch stress, which is a whole different kettle of fish. And I think people think, oh, well, I'm going to launch a course and it's going to be, even cash flow, and it's going to be low stress, and I'm going to throw out the word passive income. And there really is no such thing. I didn't really think about any of those things when I did it. But in hindsight, I think one of the things people have to think about is, how scalable do they want it to be? Because what I did is I created a course. I wanted everything I knew in the course, or as much as I could fit in. So I have created rather a big course. So my course is really a course for people who want to become copywriters. Now, I am going to be creating a mini version of that for business writers. But I think for people who want to create a course, rather than just jumping in and creating the content, think about who it's for and think about what they want to achieve, and use that to really direct. And the other thing is, think about how scalable you want it to be. For my course, I include a lot of coaching. So it's very hands-on. So I can only accept a small number of people each time I run the course. So if someone wants to earn more money by getting more people to sign up for the course, you have to make it scalable. And that means less involvement for you, but you have to make it valuable in other ways. So these are some of the mechanics that you have to consider. We all start from a point of like, I want to share my knowledge with the world and it's going to be amazing. But, you know, how big's the course going to be? Who's it for? How many people can sign up for one time? How much work do you have to do for each cohort? Is there coaching involved? And that will determine how scalable it is. And another thing I learned was, and it's the same with memberships, the biggest reason people quit is because there's too much content. You give them too much and they become overwhelmed, and then they start feeling guilty because they haven't kept up to date. Mm-hmm. And then they quit. So that's something to consider. That's why gamification and things like that can be really well applied, where you motivate people to keep moving through the content. So these are some things that I have learned through running the course, and what I will keep in mind for future courses, and what I definitely keep in mind for my private coaching membership.
Yeah, I think you're bang on, Belinda, in terms of why most people don't finish the course is because there's just way too much content, and either it doesn't apply to the learner, or it's just too overwhelming, and they give up on themselves from believing that they can get through it. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. So here's just a follow-up question. What skills do you incorporate from your copywriting as you're creating the course? Like what kind of, does that make sense? The question, like how do you use your copywriting skills when you're building your course, or when you built your course?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things. There's obviously the marketing and the nurturing. So you need an opt-in page. You need to sell the transformation. You need to nurture people who are interested, so that by the time you open the course, people are already sold. I want as many people to have already decided to sign up when I open the cart, so that I'm doing as little selling as possible once I've opened. I'm just trying to get the maybes to get more interested. Now, when it comes to the actual course content, I use a lot of my tone of voice experience. So I want my course, when it's read, to sound like me. I want every touch point with my course content being the video or the PDF lesson or the emails they get or the coaching in the Facebook group. I want it to have a consistent tone of voice and feel. And that's why for me, I write, when you read something I've written, it sounds exactly like me now, only it's had a proofreader's touch, so it sounds a little better. The other thing I use when I create my content is formatting techniques. So I have short paragraphs, I have subheadings, I use graphics and little icons and things like that, because I want the content to be visually appealing. I want it to be digestible, and that's where short paragraphs and subheadings work to break up the eye as people move through the content. So they're big things. I also, instead of calls to action in my content, I have things that I like people to reflect on something, or I like people to take a moment to do something. And things like that, the more people you can get people to do or think, the more they will make progress, and the more connected they'll be with the content.
Oh, so is it me, Cindy?
Yeah, it is you, Jonathan.
Well, I think you've covered some of the stuff. I'll link to a question I was going to ask you, actually, Belinda, because I have worked for some organisations, and around 50 to 100 people organisations, and they've said, I said, what about the copyright? Who's going to write the content? Well, we're going to write it. We've got Susie here, who's got MA in English prose, and off she goes and comes back the copy, and it's like War and Peace. It's a page, and I think my vocabulary is reasonably sophisticated, but like I'm reading this and I'm having to get the dictionary out for every fourth word because I have no idea what these words are. Do you think that's quite common, actually?
Yes. There's also a thing when I've worked with clients where they've said, oh, I love the copy and I'm just going to give it to my partner, wife, boyfriend, husband, cousin, because they know a little bit about marketing. So a lot of people, get lumped with reviewing or writing copy who aren't in the right headspace for it. When we're talking about overcomplicating copy, I actually just did a little YouTube tutorial all about readability, because a lot of people think that the more complicated the language that they use, the smarter they sound. And the smarter they sound, the more professional it is. And the more impressive it is. And we don't want to dumb it down too much. And one of the conversations I'm often having with clients is straightforward and clear is not dumb. It's important to be straightforward and clear. No one ever said, this copy is way too readable. I had no problems understanding this at all. That's never a challenge. So one of the tools I like to use is there's several readability tools that you can get online. There's Readable.io, and there's even an app called the Hemingway app, which will help you identify passages in your copy that are too complicated, that are unreadable. The Readable.io, I think it's Readable.io or it's Readability.io. Basically, that will give you a grade score on the writing that you've done. And all copy should have an elementary school or a primary school, as we say, grade score level. The higher the education level of the person reading the copy, the higher the education level needs to be, the harder it is to read. So if you want to make your copy more readable, you need shorter sentences and less complicated words. And, the beautiful thing about English is sometimes there is precisely the right word that you need. So you don't need to use uncomplicated language in every single instance. If there is precisely the right word to use, you use that word. But a lot of people like to add some hot air and fluff. We're talking about utility, not use. In other words, instead of, it's just there's lots of ways that we use longer, more complicated language because we think it makes us sound smarter and more professional, and it's just not necessary. And I think great examples are SaaS companies, software as a service. Any software company that's really, really big these days, you go to their website, very simple, straightforward language that is all about how customers will benefit. They're great examples of just making it clear and straightforward. So if ever you feel like wonder if this copy is a bit too complicated, plug it into a readability tool. Word even has a readability tool. It will give you a grade score in Word. If it's high school level, try and make it clearer and more straightforward.
That's cool. I actually hadn't heard of that before, but that's a great idea. And again, completely agree to keep it as simple as possible and more the grade level readability, so to speak. So that's really good. I'll have to check that out. I haven't heard of readability before. And it's funny.
We're actually going to have to round up the podcast.
Okay.
But Belinda's going to be staying on for a little while, which you'll be able to watch on the WP-Tonic website and YouTube channel, and she's going to be discussing how sending out one email a day has helped her build her business, which was a bit counterintuitive to me, but she swears by it. So we're going to have a discussion on that. So Belinda, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
My website, my business is called Copyright Matters. My website is copyrightmatters.com. That's basically where I have free courses. I have my daily copywriting tips. I have a blog. There's tons of free content. And I also have some mini courses that are free. I have my big copywriting course, and there's lots of other things that you can get more involved in coaching with me. But there's also tons of free stuff on there. And if people look for me on social media, I'm on social media way too much. So yeah, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they're too much. People can find me. Look for Belinda Weaver. I'm Ginger. I'm a copywriter. You can't miss me.
Oh, Can't miss that ginger. There we go. Ginger spice. There we go. Sorry, Cindy. Oh, God. Cindy, how can people find out more about you?
All right. So if you're looking to create an online course and need help in terms of crafting that message or in order to keep it short and simple for your students to understand, you can reach out to me at thecoursewhisperer.com.
And folks, if you're looking for help, if you're a developer, WordPress consultant, and you're looking help to build some custom functionality for your WordPress learning management system, we're the folks to help you. If you're an entrepreneur too busy to maintain your WordPress membership site or learning management system, we've got a service and a product for you as well. So just contact us and we'd love to help you and give you some free advice. We'll be back next week with another expert to hopefully give you the knowledge that you're looking for around your WordPress membership website. We'll be back next week, folks. Bye. Right. Oh, she's had enough.
That's all right. I just had to close my door.
You had enough of me, Cindy.
I thought that was
there we
the
go.
exit,
I don't blame her.
exit stage right.
That's why I don't even say goodbye. Just walk away.
You're not the first one that's done it. That's walked off after me. Sorry, I interrupted, didn't I, Cindy? Off you go.
No, that's okay. I because we were doing this at a different time, I wasn't paying attention to the actual clock. So sorry about that in terms of going on.
No,
I just put those resources in the chat box as well.
All right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of Readable before. So that's I think that's really, really good tip for people is to just double check their what level it's at. Because again, everybody wants to do too much and be too complicated.
Yeah. That's right.
I'm constantly working with my clients to simplify things and cut stuff out because it's counterintuitive. You know, you're thinking if people want to feel like they've got value, you give, and really with courses, it's kind of the opposite. You scale it back for them and keep it as streamlined as possible. So,
yes.
So that's a good suggestion. Oh, so Jonathan, you wanted to talk about the email thing, or
let's go into email. So, how did you who advised you, or where did you read that sending out a daily email was going to be beneficial to your business, Belinda? And, you know, how have you managed it in your busy life do you kind of batch process them and then send them out, or how's the process?
So I got the idea originally from a chap called Ben Settle. He sends out daily emails. They're very short, as are mine, with one call to action. And so I'd been following Ben Settle for a while, and I was working with a coach who said, you should try this daily email approach. And I said, well, that's crazy because who's going to sign up to a daily email? And he said, well, you, because you've signed up to Ben Settle's. And I was like, ooh, touche. So I thought, well, I'm going to run a content experiment. I'm going to see what happens, because one of the worst things, not the worst things to do, but when we make assumptions about what our audience will like or how they like it delivered and all those kinds of things, when we assume, we can get it wrong, because I make videos. I do not like watching videos, but I know a lot of people like watching videos. So that's one of the things I've had to overcome. And it's the same with the daily email. So what I've basically done is I am going through my blog back catalogue, and I am updating old blogs. I'm breaking them up into emails. So one blog might be one email. One blog might be 5 emails. And I basically batch create them. I get up early, very early before my children. So that's often when I do that kind of work. And every now and then I have to put in, I say, well, we're going to have an implementation week because we all need a bit of a break. And that's me secretly saying I've run out of emails. So I need some time to create some more emails. But the thing is, when I started this my goal is to do it for a year. I thought I'll do it for 3 months, and I'm already at 6 months. I'm at 150 emails, I think. And what I'm finding is, while I get a few unsubscribes each email, which I totally respect, and I usually get people emailing me saying, I'm sorry, it's really good stuff, but I can't have any more emails. I totally respect that. And all the content I'm publishing is on my blog as well. So I usually say, well, you can still read it on the blog. But I started this, I am only up to 2013 in my blog archive. I've been blogging every week for a long time, and I'm only up to 2013 in my blog archive. So it has shown me how much content I have at my disposal that was just languishing on my blog that I wasn't really doing anything with. So as part of this daily email process, I'm also creating a spreadsheet of my blog content with social media updates. And my VA helps me by scheduling old posts to go out regularly. So my old content is getting an airing with new audiences. And I think blogging is a fantastic way to give your add domain authority to your website. It's a fantastic way to show off your knowledge and experience in a way that's helpful. It's the foundation of content marketing. But blogs can be turned into, and this is what I do, they can be reshared, turned into videos, turned into emails, turned into a course, all sorts of things. And what I found is that, as I mentioned, while I get a few unsubscribes on each email, a surprising number of people are with me. And I'm getting more engagement from the emails that I send out than I ever did from sending out a fortnightly blog post. And I find that very rewarding, especially for the more personal emails. Every now and then I'll have little emails where I talk about being afraid and the challenges that I have as a freelancer. And they're usually more personal, and they're the ones I get the most response from. And I find that I really enjoy being able to talk to people because, through all our marketing, the more we have this word engagement, but it's basically the more we can talk to people and the more we can connect people, the more conversations we have, the more likely it is that someone will stick around and buy, which is not really, that sounds very cash oriented, but ultimately conversion is what we're all about. But I like to make those connections meaningful and strong and rewarding for us both along the way. So I try and help when people respond and say, this is what I'm struggling with. I try and help as much as possible. Free coaching as much as possible. Because I want people to be able to walk away and go, oh, that conversation has changed what I'm going to do just a little bit.
That's great. Cindy?
It's so you mentioned just being a freelancer. So you've talked about the evolution of, how your business has changed over, at least 5 years. So can you just maybe talk a little bit about that? Like how did you go about making that shift from, the one-to-one, business model over to kind of creating the courses and stuff? Can you just because I'm sure there's a lot of freelancers that listen to this that are thinking about, how do I make that transition?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we work directly with clients, we might have several clients on the books at one time, but we are exchanging our time for money in a very one-to-one manner. So what I realized is when I had my first kid, I was like, I don't have a lot of time anymore. So the time I do spend, I need to make it financially more profitable for me to do that. So that's when I learned, I launched courses. That's when I launched my course. But of course, what happened is I went from having a free blog to a really big course. And then what I had to do is I had to fill in the gaps to help people make small jumps from my free content all the way to my big course. And then a challenge that I had is I'm like, well, I can run my course twice a year or 3 times a year. And I have this intense spikes of labor and more money coming in and then nothing. So that's when I started looking about, okay, well, what can I really do with a one-to-many role? And that's when a membership really comes into it. And for me, it's a private coaching program where people can learn more copywriting and build and grow their businesses. So I think if people are thinking, well, I want to ditch freelancing, or I want to make my time more profitable, one of the things they have to consider is, who is their tribe? when I was looking at making the switch, one thing I polled my blog readers, because I thought it was all small business owners reading my blog. So I sent out a quick survey and said, who are you? What do you do? And I realized that it was 80% copywriters. So I was like, oh, my tribe is different than I thought. So never discount the benefit of asking people who they are, what they're struggling with, and what they want, because that can usually give you some gaps that you can fill. Because courses might not be for everyone, running membership programs might not be for everyone, but I think that membership model is the epitome of that one-to-many. You're doing the work and many people are paying you for it. But you can't just launch a membership. You've got to build a long runway, and part of that runway might be a course. Part of that runway might be building your personal brand, because what people are buying into with a course or a membership site of any size is they're buying you. Right. So it's less about what you do and more about who you are. And there's that phrase, people don't remember what you did, they remember how you make them feel. So building a personal brand is a really important part of making that switch from one-to-one. Clients really only care about the results, to a one-to-many, because you have to build trust with people.
That makes a lot of sense. Jonathan?
Yeah, I think my questions escaped my mind, actually. God, I did have that's it. So, don't be frightened, Belinda. I won't be angry if you tell us the truth. So, for your membership site, did you use WordPress or did you use one of these fully hosted SaaS solutions?
I have a fully hosted SaaS solution. Oh. I use Rainmaker Digital.
I haven't heard. I will use Rainmaker.
Yeah.
All right. So when you were looking at...
I used WordPress before then, though.
Is that why you went to Rainmaker?
Well, Rainmaker, so it's Rainmaker Digital by the Copy Blogger group. And, it's just... I looked at it quite a bit and I was like, no, I got this. Like, WordPress is so easy to use. I can get plugins for anything I need to do. But the all-in-one hosted solution for me, just they did podcasting and email and LMS, and it really reduced the complications for me. But it's built on a WordPress platform, so it feels very familiar. I think WordPress is the way to go.
So I actually don't know, because obviously it was part of the Studio Press, the parent company, and Studio Press they sold to WP Engine. Have they kept ownership of that part of it, or did they sell that to WP Engine, or do you know?
You're talking about Rainmaker Digital? Yeah. No, Rainmaker Digital is still with the parent.
Alan Clark.
Brian Clark.
Brian Clark, that's it. Yeah.
So Studio
I apologise, Brian. He actually come on the show, actually, so I apologise, Brian.
That's right.
He's a fabulous guy.
He's a good dude.
All right. So did you look at any of the other fully SaaS solutions, or did this it was linked to WordPress, was the main selling point to you?
Do you know what? This is a great example of the power of trust and relationships in purchasing decisions. Didn't look at any other one. I knew Copyblogger. They'd launched it a few times. I'd looked at it a few times. I completely trusted and knew them. When it was time for me to make a decision, there was only one option.
Oh.
It was that simple. And that's the power of nurturing relationships through emails and video and all these other ways that we have to share our content and build relationships. Because when I launch something, I want people to go, yes, I don't care what it is, I'll take it. Or I know you now. This is what I'm really going for. I know you. And so I trust you, and I'm going to buy your thing. I'm not going to, I want people to shop around a little bit to realize it's a good decision, because that's smart. But at the end of the day, I want them to know me and like me and trust me and buy from me because of that. And also because it's awesome.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, because it's a bit like why I got into podcasting, because as a child I was heavily influenced by listening to Radio 4, Play for Today, and I was one of these nerdy kids, but there we go. Kind of my education, because of my dyslexia, I was always a bit of an outsider with the education establishment. They could never really work out me, really. So I got kind of educated by radio, and I think radio podcasting fundamental is a kind of digital version of radio, isn't it, Belinda? I think you've got a very unique relationship with your listeners and viewers through the medium of the voice. Would you agree with that, Belinda?
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't mentioned it, but I have a podcast too called Hot Copy with another copywriter called Kate Toon. And, you know, when you listen to someone in your actual ear holes, it's a very personal and intimate relationship. So a lot of people find me now through the podcast, and they feel like they know me well because they've listened to Kate and I chat, which is a bit weird sometimes when we start having conversations and they're very familiar with me. And I'm like, we've never met. I'm like, oh, that's right. I talk all the time, and you listen. But yeah, it's, you know, when you can watch someone with video and you can listen to them either with audios or podcasts, it is a lot more intimate and personal and effective than just an email, which is more effective than just a social post.
That's great. I think we're going to wrap it up. Belinda's got her dog, her children, her husband, her business, her empire. She's a busy lady, folks. So we're going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up.
To prep, that's what.
We're going to wrap it up for this week, folks, and we'll be back next week with another fabulous guest like Belinda. It's been a fun discussion, and Belinda's brought a lot of value to the discussion as well. You get top marks, get 5 stars, Belinda. So we'll be back next week, folks. Bye.
Thanks very much, Cindy. Thanks, Jonathan.
Bye.